Hello and welcome to this next video in the Standard 1 Mathematics course for New South Wales. This video is starting a unit on right-angled triangles, and we're actually going to start with some rehashing and reviewing of Pythagoras Theorem. Pythagoras Theorem obviously being introduced a few years ago for most of you now. And it being the theory and the formula that deals with finding the third side of a triangle given the two sides, the other two sides of said triangle. So here we have a bit of a diagram. Diagram of a right-angled triangle, and you can see labelled there is the hypotenuse, or the longest side of the triangle. So the longest side of the triangle is the hypotenuse. It is always opposite the right angle. So here we have our right angle here. There's our right angle, and it is opposite the hypotenuse. They are opposite to each other. Okay, so that's the biggest thing to remember at the moment, is the hypotenuse being the longest side of the right-angled triangle and is always opposite the right angle. Okay, so let's start with the ideas around Pythagoras' theorem. Just change to my darker pen to make sure it's the right size. Yep. Okay, so the Pythagoras theorem, it states that the square of the hypotenuse so that's where we have our little superscript 2 where we're multiplying a number by itself. Square of the hypotenuse is equal, as in the same as, the sum, or the total when they're added together, of the squares of the other two sides. Okay, so it's the square of the other two sides, and they're added together, and then we find the square roots and all those sorts of things. So there's a couple of ways that we can do this. We can find the long side. Okay, let's use blue for this one. So for the long side, okay, we are going to use that exact idea. So the long side, so that's the hypotenuse. I'll pop that up here as well. The hypotenuse side, long side, we're going to use h today. Normally we would, or sometimes we see it with a c squared, so it would be c squared equals a squared plus b squared, where c is our hypotenuse and a and b are our opposite sides, our other two sides. We have the other way of doing this, so this is finding our long side, which is nice and easy, or we can find a short side. Okay, we can also find the short side, or a shorter side. And for this one, we're going to use a squared equals c squared minus b squared. Now another way to write both of these out, if I pop in the green, would be h for hypotenuse, and then a squared plus b squared, and then the same over here. Instead of using c, we can use b, h for hypotenuse. Okay, let's get into some examples. Here's my first example. We're going to find the length of the hypotenuse, to 2 decimal places. Alright, so this is the long side, and that's obviously h there. And then I'm just going to label the other two sides with a and b, because that's just going to make things a little bit easier. Alright, so very first step in anything like this, if it's not to draw a diagram, if you've already got a diagram, there's no real need to draw one. If there isn't a diagram, it can make it easier if you draw one. Okay, we do have a diagram here. So the next thing that we're going to do is we're going to write the formula. I highly recommend that we do this, particularly early on. It just means that we're starting from that really good foundation of where we need to be and where we want to go. Okay, if we don't start here, we can put things in the wrong spot, and it just makes a bit of a mess of things if we're not quite getting what we want to get. So always start with the formula. H being the hypotenuse of the side we want to find, stays as h. And then I've labelled the 5 centimetres as a, so I'm going to make that 5 squared. I've labelled the 9 centimetres as b, so I'll make that 9 squared. Now the easiest thing here to do, because we could do a couple of different things, one of the things that we could do is we could actually square out the 5 and the 9 and then find the square root of what that number is added all together. Or we can do this, so we can find the square root of h squared, which is just h. And then we can use our wonderful square root sign and pop these underneath. Because amazingly, we actually have this thing called a calculator that we can type the square root of 5 squared plus 9 squared into said calculator, and it will give us an answer. So we don't even need to do a whole lot of stuff. We're just going to find ourselves an answer. Now, I've drawn there an equal sign. What I actually want is an approximately equal sign, simply because this is technically an estimation. Okay, so it's an estimated sign. So we're using an approximately equal sign, and we should get 10.30 or 30 centimeters. Now just remember, 2 decimal places means that you need to have 2 decimal places in your answer. If your answer there was just 10.3 in your calculator, you need to add that 0 because the question wants 2 decimal places. Okay, very important that we answer what the question wants. All right, let's have a look at another example. It's a little bit different in that we now have x, is that what we're looking for here. So we're looking for x. And you'll notice that this is actually one of the shortest sides. So if I go back to here, we've got our right angle in here in green. Which means this side opposite that, the 12 millimeter side, has to be the hypotenuse. Okay, that has to be the hypotenuse. So that becomes h, and then I'm going to use b over the side to make it a little bit easier for me. So back there, again, I've got a diagram, no need to draw one, so I'm going to jump straight to my formula. And this time I'm going to use the short side formula. So that's the a squared equals h squared minus b squared. Now it's really important for this one, that is the hypotenuse minus your other short side. If you do your short side minus your hypotenuse, you are not going to get the correct answer. Okay? So again, we're going to make that x squared because that's what we've got. We've got an x. So x squared because that's what we're looking for the value of. Hypotenuse, well that's 12 millimeters. So 12 squared. Our other side is 5. So it's 12 squared minus 5 squared. Okay. Again, same deal as before. Let's find the square roots of things. So we have x instead of x squared. And then we're going to have the square root of 12 squared minus 5 squared. All right, and then we can type that straight into our calculator, excellent tool. A proper calculator will take you lots of places. And again, it's an approximation, and this time it's to 1 decimal place, just the 1 decimal place. So this one is going to be 10.9 millimeters. And that's all there is to Pythagoras' theorem. Hopefully that's given you some help and assistance, and good luck with any of your questions. Again, these questions have come from, or the examples have come from, the Cambridge Mathematics Standard 1 textbook for New South Wales. Good luck with everything, and thanks for watching.